And yes, indeed, remember that we had been earlier warned of El Nino, which was later, the wording was changed to mean extreme rain. But according to what you're seeing is flooding is happening and Kenyans are losing their lives, are losing their source of food, their source of livelihood. Painful pictures right there. And earlier we also had a conversation or a story that was done with regard to energy, and that is very soon you shall be forced to dig deeper into your pocket to be able to afford fuel, to be able to drive your car. And it is on that basis that we go straight to our interview today. And in studio with me, I have Patricia Njerim Bogo on my extreme left, International Coordinator, Access Coalition. I have Dr. Sarah Wykes, Senior Research Associate in Energy Planning. And I also have Florence Ndeti from Caritas in Kitui. Ladies, welcome on set. And I'll start with you, Dr. straight ahead. Now, when we talk about energy transition, green energy, there is the issue to do with planning. Now, as Africa, we recently had the Africa Climate Summit that took place in Nairobi that brought together African countries to have a common goal. But even as we talk about transition, we've just seen fuel prices are hitting the roof. How should we go about it?
So I think what you saw with those two stories was why we urgently need a transition to more sustainable, renewable energy. So both to tackle climate change impacts, which, as you know, in Kenya, we're having very extreme, severe impacts now regularly. And as you said, that means people are losing their lives, their livelihoods, etc. So we need to move to those cleaner, more renewable energy sources to tackle climate change. If people have those kind of energy systems like solar home systems, that can build their resilience too, because obviously grid systems can also be affected by climate change. And then also you saw, the price of fuel. So imported fossil fuels, you said first, in terms of the terrible conflict that there is at the moment, in Israel, or with Israel and Hamas, basically, people to be more secure against the rising costs of imported fuel, actually moving to renewable energy systems and domestic production of energy, which Kenya has actually done, is very lucky in that respect. Kenya has great renewable energy sources. A lot of Kenya's generation is clean generation. Then obviously, but transport is something. Moving to sustainable transport systems, more public transport systems, that's absolutely vital for, not just for climate change, but basically for poverty reduction, so that people can afford to travel around, basically. And I just wanted to take a step back. Our work is about trying to, the sustainable development goals. We all know there's a sustainable development goal around everybody having access to energy. Basically, we are not making, Kenya has made great strides, for example. Kenya has a target of universal access to electricity. Kenya has made great strides, but there's still around a quarter of the population that is not connected to electricity. And when you look at the goal of universal access to clean cooking, by that we mean not cooking with freestone fires, with firewood or charcoals, and all the health impacts, for example, that has. 80% of Kenya's population still cook with those kind of traditional methods. So there's a huge way to go for that clean cooking target in countries like Kenya. And globally, I'm just going to say this, globally we've made quite a lot of progress with electricity access. Clean cooking has been stagnating for a long time. So, and even with electricity access, people are being pushed further into poverty. Before we had, obviously, the Israeli Hamas situation, we had Ukraine, we had COVID, which has pushed people further into poverty, including meaning that people, say, who are connected to electricity, they can no longer afford that electricity. So we need to have different ways to move things forward more quickly to reach those goals, and different types of planning is one way to do that. And I'll
come to you, Florence. She's talking about how to have clean, sustainable energy for people at the grassroots. You deal with such kind of demographics every single day. And what would always come is the cost of renewable energy, renewable clean cooking energy. At the grassroots, what conversations are you having with them to have it easy for them to make that transition?
Thank you for that question. I'll respond to you in line with our experience supporting the county government of Kitui a few years ago to develop the county energy master plan. One of the principles that we have in our constitution is a principle of participation. And it also emphasizes on the need to listen to the people. Local peoples know what they want. It only requires the experts to tap into what they know, their knowledge and their experience in relation to renewable energy. Sharing the experience that we had, we adopted an approach called energy deliverable model, which is actually a basic bottom-up, where we did a lot of consultation with the communities, of course in all sectors, bringing across all the 10 ministries, because energy is an enabler to development. And in that sense, it means if you're in trade, you need to plan energy. If you're in health, you need to plan energy. So we looked at that intensely and tried to look at every ministry. What are your energy needs? And of course, aligned to renewable energy. And then from there, we went to the communities. And interestingly, what is my need in terms of energy could be different from a person we are in the same household. For example, if you go to a particular school, you ask the various stakeholders in relation to their energy needs. A teacher will tell you we need energy for power for our phones. While for the students or the pupils, it's about the light so that they can have extended time to read. It's different from the cook in the same institution who would wish to have electricity to cook. So for us, we've learned it is very important to use the bottom up so that we can get the needs of the people and again, get priorities right so that we are able to influence budgeting, because the current form of governance in devolution is finance follows function. If it is not planned for, it cannot get a budget. So if we plan with the people's needs and priorities with us, it is most likely that we will get to solve the needs of the people in terms of renewable energy provision. Again, one other gap that we realized is when it comes to budgeting, we would wish to have a level where we have adequate financing for renewable energy, especially at county level, but we have competing needs. So priorities have to be right, and it is, from our learning, it's a function of all the ministries to understand the nexus that is needed when planning for energy, and each ministry plans for it. That there is an important call unit that needs to coordinate to make sure that what is planned in the ministries is actually implemented and all stakeholders are involved. Again, referencing the issue of energy need. If you go to a household, the energy need for a mother could be different from the energy need of the
father. And it'll come to you now. Here is the question of energy needs being different, but then here is access to that energy. That's where you come in. Now, as we have this discussion now, issue would be a mother would need energy for a different thing, a father and a child in that house. But how do we access this energy such that every single person in a house has access to this energy in a way that is affordable, that is clean? Because we are having this show here because we realize that fossil fuels have destroyed the environment we're in. Therefore, how are we making that transition to access clean, renewable, but affordable energy?
Yeah, when you're looking at the household, and thank you for the question, we have to look about the cost element and the sustainability of it. When you look at the households, and especially in Africa, majority of the statistics are showing that over 673 households are still lacking electricity. We have 2.3 billion households still lacking clean cooking. And you also have marginalized communities that are not in the grid infrastructure. So we have to look into the entire spectrum in terms of where are these households located, and ensure that we define pathway in terms of access to energy access. When it comes to sustainability, and it's just saying everybody needs energy for to meet their needs. Be it the woman, she needs the household energy for cooking, lighting up the home. Maybe the man needs the energy, maybe for powering equipment within the farm. Probably it's agriculture, the tools and all that. And even the children, they need light for education. They need to access information even through the internet. So when you look in terms of the entire spectrum, we have to ensure that we define pathways that are sustainable, and we are looking in terms of the infrastructure on the financing part of it. So for us, as especially at Access Coalition, we engage with different stakeholders within the energy space. We look in terms of the financiers in this space, be it the multilateral development banks. We look in terms of the infrastructure and how their strategies are able to welcome renewables. Currently, we have been targeting the African Development Banks, the World Bank, and also we have had some other engagements also with the IMF and even other financial institutions, trying to see how much are they cascading down to the populations within, especially the developing countries. We have to ensure that we define pathways whereby there is accountability, there's an equitable way of distributing the resources, and ensuring especially the vulnerable and the marginalized communities are also able to access the energy that we are talking about. The renewables, especially for Kenya, on the area of electricity, we are doing well, but we realize despite that infrastructure well laid out, we still have households that cannot be able to cook with electricity. We have those emerging issues that are also coming up. We also have other alternative fuels that we could also consider. We have the LPG that has been defined as a transitional fuel, and we are trying to build the developing countries to be able to get out of the narrative of the fossil fuels and be able to use other cleaner options. So we have to ensure that the governments of the different nations, they have to ensure they put up systems where to define pathways that ensure that we are going to the renewables that are more sustainable, reliable, and also they are affordable at the household level. So we have to ensure that the households, they are also able to meet other needs, because there are other competing priorities within a household. And if that one is not addressed, we have seen people getting back to their old rudimentary kind of technologies. If the fuels, and we have seen also in the news that when it goes higher, they have to look for alternatives. They may either get back to their old fuels that they have been using, but if we ensure that they are affordable, then there's that pathway that is already generated.
And let me come to you, Sarah. She is talking in terms of making sure that households get the energy that they need in a more affordable way, and that they are green. But all these demands planning, and this is planning from a global perspective, cascading down to countries, to different governments, to counties, and all the way to where now Sarah would be talking to the common person on the need of getting into this. Now, in terms of Kenya making sure that this is happening, or countries out there, are they giving this a priority? Because someone would say it's all about making profits and making money, but we are making profits at the expense of households.
So I would say, you know, resources are limited for everybody, right? National government, county governments. And I think you have an opportunity in Kenya now, because under the Energy Act 2019, county governments have to do energy plans now. So our planning approach that we developed, you know, with Loughborough and with an organisation called IIAD in the UK, is saying, let's look at energy as an enabler of these different development needs. Let's ask people, let's really find out what people in a particular context, say county, like Kitui County or Meru County, where we've worked recently. Let's try and identify what are those development needs, but then prioritise, and working with those people on the ground, county government, etc., to prioritise, because you can't do everything, okay, and you don't have the resource for everything. So let's plan a county energy plan in a way that defines what are those key development needs, what's the role of energy services in delivering those. So, for example, if the need is farmers want to increase their income from growing a particular crop, they may have a need to access irrigation and power for irrigation, but there may be a lot of other things that are not to do with energy, access to markets, you know, cost of inputs. I mean, that's a huge issue for farmers at the moment. Access to training. So our approach is, yes, you want to think about delivering the energy to power irrigation, but you need to think about all those other things as well. And if you don't do those other non-energy things, you won't deliver. Just giving people power for irrigation will not give that impact of increasing the farmer's income. So we're trying to design these holistic solutions. And as both Patricia and Florence have said, you need to build the buy-in of people and the county governments. And if you do that proper a process where you go to the ground and you really try to get people to understand, you want to try to understand their needs, but also then to understand that you have to prioritise and you can't do everything. That builds the ownership and the buy-in. So what we're saying is great opportunity in Kenya now with the county energy plans. Let's make sure they're aligned with the county development planning. That's where the money's coming in and the budgeting. And let's also look at what donors can do and others. So build it. You've got to make those solutions that you're designing financially viable as well as environmentally and socially, okay? So you need a good business model, right? And that might involve, you might not be able to give that irrigation to every farmer. You need to target which farmers. It may be that the farmers have to put in some money themselves, right? You may have to organise access to finance for them. So you need to really work out in detail your business model. Is that going to work? And if county governments can get behind that and allocate resource, then they can also go to other like donors, etc., and say, look, we've really done our homework here. We've got these business models. We know we want to increase income from our farmers from growing these cash crops. We've got worked out, the costs and the benefits. Can you come in and help us on this training or whatever? So that's the opportunity in Kenya, I think now, with these more bottom-up county energy planning.
And I'll be coming to you, Florence, after this break, to just so that you give me a feedback on, in terms of, with all these planning models that do exist, how are you tapping into that as a county so that that same information can go to the farmers who can access that information, organize themselves so that they can not only get access to clean energy, but funding that will help them get there. But let's take this short commercial break. We will be back with much more.
KTN News. Get the whole story. The Iten International Marathon's second edition, titled Run for Climate Resilience, is quickly approaching. This event will take place in Iten, Elgeyo Marakwet County on November 12th, 2023. Registration for the marathon's 3 divisions, 42 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and 5 kilometer family run is now open at Elgeyo Marakwet Sports Office and Ward offices. Registration fee is 1,000 shillings for 42 kilometers, 500 shillings for 10 kilometers, and 300 shillings for 5 kilometers. Corporate run registration, on the other hand, is 50,000 Kenya shillings. This year's main prize is 1 million cash. Visit www.iteninternationalmarathon.co.ke for more information about registration. The registration period will end on November 9th, 2023. The whole story on KTN News YouTube channel.
Ingia Zone na YouTube. Get free 500 MB of YouTube when you buy any Safaricom weekly bundle. Just dial *544# au tembelea my Safaricom app today.
Have you ever wondered how these roads are built and maintained? How they are kept safe and efficient for everyone to use? Today, we take you on a journey to uncover the story behind Kenya's road infrastructure and the impact of the Fuel Levy Fund. This fuel levy, known as the Road Maintenance Levy Fund, RMLF, plays a crucial role in financing road projects across the country.
Wameniwekea mpaka njia ya disability friendly. Barabara ni kama imewekwa mafuta. Wametengeneza barabara za Kasarani, siko nyua, siko sawa.
We have quality checks when it comes to road construction. We also have surveyors who ensure that the levels are achieved on our roads.
Kenya Roads Board, your fuel levy at work.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tunataka kufahamu mtu ni nani? Mwanadamu ni yule ambaye ameheshimiwa na Mwenyezi Mungu. Ikiwa tutamshikanisha mwanadamu na Mwenyezi Mungu, tunakuja kumweleza huyu Mungu ni nani.
Africa Speaks, a groundbreaking show that brings you the beauty, diversity, and untold stories of Africa like never before. From the sprawling savannas to the bustling cities, from ancient traditions to modern innovations, Africa Speaks captures the essence of this magnificent continent done by Africans from an African perspective. Journey with us to the continent's tourist attraction and historical sites through Destination Africa. Learn from our ancestors' wise words on Proverb of the Day. Africa Speaks, where the voice of Africa echoes around the world.
KTN News. Get the whole story.
And thank you for watching KTN News. Welcome back to Planet Action as we continue to have this discussion surrounding energy transition in the country and the world at large. What we must do to be able to get there. Remember that statistics have also shown that we are already at past 1.5 degrees. It is impossible for us to maintain the 1.5 degrees. Therefore, what must we do to lower the emissions? But before we get to that, now farmers in Mandera County are grappling with substantial losses as their farms have been swept away by floods caused by continuous rainfall in the region. Farmers in Mandera East, particularly in Border Point 1 scheme, hardest hit, losing over 35 hectares of farmland. Crops such as kale, tomatoes, maize and watermelons carefully cultivated by the farmers have been destroyed by the floods. Mohammed Arabey, one of the affected farmers, is urging local leaders to provide humanitarian aid, emphasizing their current state of destitution. On her part, Mandera Women Representative Khair has announced her intention to present a bill in Parliament aimed at safeguarding farmers and preventing further destruction. The sweeping away of farms under irrigation raises concerns.
Iko kitunguu, iko mahindi, iko spinach, iko bilibili, iko maharawe, iko vitu mingi. Na karibu hii shamba inakaribia karibu 1,000,000 hasara.
Mahindi, marawe, kutungu, nyanya, kila kitu iko kwa hii shamba. Na hakuna kitu nabaki, hata kama nabaki weka mashini bande hiyo. Nafikiri hiyo line mbili nabaki kwa bande hiyo. Hakuna kitu kingine hapa nabaki. Mainji ngushaenda, kila siku inji naenda.
They are really in a dire situation as we speak. All their farms, food is all gone, and they're appealing to our officers. And I would urge the national government to come in handy and support the farmers of Mandera.
And very well now, in studio with me, I have Patricia Njerim-Bogo, International Coordinator, Access Coalition, Dr. Sarah Wax, Senior Research Associate in Energy Planning, and I do have Florence Ndede from Caritas Kitui. Now, before we went to the break, Florence, we're having this discussion on how we can take advantage of the information that Sarah has. We take advantage of that from the county level and cascade that lower so that people know how they can organize themselves to be able to get funding and be able to turn that into clean energy that is affordable. Are you doing that in Kitui?
Thank you for that question. For us in Kitui, we are employing different approaches, but one is to cascade the information to our people through various forums. As Kitui, we are promoting energy cook stoves at household level, fixed, permanent fixed at household level. We are also promoting pressure cooker, electric pressure cooker for the middle class. And these are avenues that we are using to cascade this content to the people. And also emphasizing on the need for people to participate in planning at all levels within the county, because the county is always inviting them for meetings to inform their plans. So it is we've taken it as our responsibility to mobilize the people in organized groups as local professionals to speak to these issues, because once they speak about them, there's a higher chance of influencing the technical team, and such issues are factored in the plans. Then there's a follow-up on financing. Like I said, if it is not planned, we cannot finance. So we are taking advantage of the programs that we have, and also taking advantage of multi-sector forums where we are working together with the counties, different sectors, other civil society, other avenues at all levels to speak about the importance of renewable energy and citizen participation into discussions that are invited by even private sector or civil society or even the government, so that we can influence, and they can influence the policies as well at the lower levels, and also influence consideration of their proposals and also budgeting for those functions. I must say there's always a weakness in terms of once the plans are done, we relax a bit. We don't follow up in terms of how much has been allocated, how is the implementation, how is the program on realization of this, because with competing priorities and needs within the counties, you know, the issue of supplementary. A budget, if it is not utilized within the desired period, it has a high chance of being reallocated to address another felt need. So we need to work more to make sure that we track the processes of budget allocation, implementation, and realization of the needs or requests or applications that the communities are requesting from the counties.
I think I'll come back to you to know why there is failure to appropriately use that which has been allocated and how we can fix that. Yeah. But I will come straight to you, and she's talking in terms of introducing clean cooking stoves. We have the pressure cookers for the middle class, and you see these are different demographics that they are intentionally targeting to be able to get into this atmosphere of green and clean energy access. And access to energy, the previous government was big on last mile connectivity, making sure that households are connected, but even at that we still have many Kenyans who are not connected to the grid, and mostly it's because the funding, the government would say doesn't have enough, or the end consumer says they don't have that which they need to pay. So how then do we have this conversation to make sure that it is the government is able to get the taxes that they need, the money that they need, but it is so incentivized, it has been made cheaper for the end consumer to be able to access energy? How do we have this conversation so that we both win? The government is not losing and I'm not paid in my pocket.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think where I would want to start is about the government priorities, is to ensure that there's that balance, and for them they're able to understand the energy landscape within their countries. A country like Kenya, there's already a lot that has been discussed on issues of energy transition, energy access, and also now we have in place partners who are already building the momentum on inclusive energy planning. So through all that, we have to ensure that the government understands the energy needs within the country. So if you're able to understand that, there's that prioritization even at the budgeting level. Because when you look in terms of the budgetary allocation, especially for clean cooking, it has been very insignificant in this country. And there has been that general awareness that we really need to accelerate efforts on issues of clean cooking and also decentralized renewable energy system. So what is required is to package the information that is coming from the planning to a language that the policymakers can be able to understand, ensure that there's that policy coherence in terms of enabling the environment. And for it to be accessible and reliable at the household level, we have to ensure that we de-risk both the private sector and also the household. We have to ensure that they are affordable consumer financing models that are being cascaded to the household level, so that they can be able now to balance within the different priorities at the household level, and they can be able now to adopt the cleaner options, the cleaner energy technologies that are being distributors within the household. So we have to look in terms of the entire spectrum, in terms of the supply chains and also the demand side part of it, and ensure that it is sustainable. We are seeing currently there's rainfall and there's flooding that is happening in some parts of the country. So we have to ensure that even at the households which are being cut off from the other part of the urbanized parts of the country, they are also able to access these cleaner cooking fuels and the technologies. So it has to be coherence and the commitments also. Yeah, we have seen plans being put in place. She's talking about the county energy plans. There's the county integrated development plans, and also we have seen other commitments by the government, both at the national level, regional level, and even at the global level. But if we don't ensure there's coherence in terms of the implementation and ensuring that we resource those plans, then they become plans that will stay on the shelves. So there has to be a momentum where different stakeholders work together in that ecosystem to ensure we are putting the resources where they are needed and ensuring there's inclusivity in terms of the decision making. Let us start from the household level, from the low level of the nation, and especially like, for example, where Florence is coming from, it's at the world level. Get to understand what are the community dynamics and what can work within that. Then we'll be able to define different pathways to enhance that transition to happen. And it's not all households that will transit to, for example, like electric pressure cookers at the same time. But there are different pathways that we are cascading to be promoted within the communities and be able to build that momentum for the household to be able to transit to cleaner energy technologies. The other way is about behavior change communication. A lot has been said, and people say that maybe food cooked in a different certain fuels is better. It tastes better.
Mine cooked in a pot to fill the
yes, like Gary and Githeri. We have to demystify that and ensure that we are doing those demonstrations even at the community level, so that they can be able to taste the food that is coming from the electric pressure cooker, food that is cooked with biofuels, cooked that is cooked even with other modern cooking technologies and fuels. And within that, we demystify, and it has to come up with a costing element that they can be able to see the savings that are also coming in place. The other issue is about the core benefits. How do we package the information about why do we need to transit, maybe, for example, from the open firewood? Households need to understand the dynamics of the impact of cooking with the firewood, the smoke it has on the women and the children who are spending most of the time in those kitchens. And also, especially for the Ministry of Health, especially from the health side of it, how much is being spent in the developing countries managing treatments. So we need to be more on the preventive measures than curative, and ensure that those resources can be channeled to other infrastructure development within the countries.
Energy, access, health, funding, and I come back to you. Florence, you've said there is money allocated towards these initiatives that are not utilized in time. They end up being reallocated. Where is the disconnect in that? Or why aren't issues to do with energy access not given priority?
I may not blame anybody on this, but I think it's the question of priorities and the conceptualization on how us as people we look at energy. Citing our process, the EDM process, most of the households did not take lighting as a priority for them. Yet everybody knows that they need it. Or maybe the upper level people think that they need proper lighting. So it is until when we enhance our understanding across board, from the lower levels to the leadership, on the importance on use of the renewable energy at household level. Secondly, in terms of access, there's the level of myth that renewable energy are expensive. Of course, at some point it is, because if you look at, for example, the pressure cooker, the electric pressure cooker that I've talked about, upfront you part with 10,000, which is not simple money for a villager in a certain village
With the
in
taxes,
Kitui,
definitely.
and the taxes and everything. So upfront, you invest, but you save longer in terms of using effective way of cooking, for example. Similar to solar, you have to invest a lot at the beginning, but then the advantages ahead of that investment are good. So we need to invest more to sensitize ourselves, the leadership, to prioritize energy as important as any other sector. And again, we need to organize ourselves and push more. When money is allocated, especially for the sector, it goes to the sector, irrespective of the competing priorities that come with time.
Let me come to you, Sarah, and there is the issue of priorities at the county. Now let's talk about priorities as government, as the population that there is in regard to addressing, or rather transitioning to clean energy. Now here's a question where, as the world now is heading to COP later this month, what are the priorities? What are they taking to the table? What should they be discussing with regard to energy transition, especially in Africa? Because now we don't want to get to fossil fuels. We know that Congo has fuels worth around $3 trillion that has not been drilled yet. How do we then package this so that we don't go the way others have gone, we go the clean way, and that it's sustainable for all of us in the long run?
So obviously it's not for me, thanks for the question, it's not for me to obviously say what, you know, the Kenyan government should be doing, but I would say that all governments, particularly obviously my government and sort of northern governments, you know, we need to stop subsidising the bad stuff, the fossil fuels. I mean, our Prime Minister is about to announce new licences for oil and gas. I think that's completely the wrong direction. It's the wrong side of history. You know, we need to be investing in the right stuff. So we need to be investing in renewable energy efficiency, bringing down demand, and obviously that has to be a just transition. So, you know, there are you know, billions of dollars spent on still subsidising fossil fuels around the world. That needs to stop. So that's a very clear thing. In terms of the kind of financing agendas that you know, Patricia has talked about, you know, say, I mean, that's a suggestion, say in terms of governments, including mine, it's about, you know, if you're thinking in the Kenyan context about energy access, really targeting that finance, because finance is scared at the right people. So if you're thinking about, you know, people might need subsidies, for example, if they're getting free firewood, you know, what's the incentives for them to move to clean cook stoves or to leapfrog to other clean technologies? You know, you need to understand people's incentive, you know, the incentives, why do people choose particular fuels and technologies? And as I say, build these sustainable business models, these different pathways. So that's very important. So I would say, if you really invested in planning energy as an enabler, say at the county level or the national level, so you're not just looking at the energy in a silo, you're not just looking at the energy budget, for example, at county level, you're saying, okay, health ministry, how can we build energy into, you know, delivering what you want to deliver? Education, the same thing. So you're having that cross-sectoral budget allocation, which the whole county development process is supposed to deliver, okay? It's supposed to be integrated. You know, county energy plan should not be a separate thing that sits on a shelf, as Patricia says. It should be mainstreamed. Climate, you know, there are climate finance, okay, climate planning. These things need to come together, I think, in the integrated development plan, and then these different pots of money can be used effectively, I would say.
And yes, Florence Ndeti, Caritas Kitui, Patricia and Jerry Mbogo, International Coordinator, Access Coalition, and Sarah Weeks, who is a senior researcher on issues to do with climate change and energy access. My name is Dennis Aseto. We were having a discussion to do with access and transition to clean energy. What we must do, and the good ladies have said that we must all come together, be it the county governments, our households, and even global communities, to be able to access that which we say will help us in the fight against climate change. My name is Dennis Aseto. Enjoy the rest of your viewing, and good night.